Hey guys, happy Friday. Today we're going to talk about your poetry project. So, on your slideshow lesson plans for this week, let's everyone take a second to get there. And you are going to click on the poetry project link, and it will open up and give you a copy. Okay, so you are not going to want to make a copy of this because if we end up making any changes, it would not reflect on your copy. So all you need to do is just go up here to your little folder or the little add to drive button and add it to your drive and organize it into your English poetry folder. That way you have a quick reference to it. So let's just take a few seconds and do that. All right, so for your poetry project, this is going to be a test grade, obviously. You're going to basically be making a poetry book made up of poems that you have written yourself, plus one poetry analysis using that TPCast method that you practiced earlier this week. Now, a couple of the main things. Your poetry book has to either be typed or very neatly handwritten. You have to have illustrations, and it has to be bound. Bound means you are putting it together like a book. A staple in the corner is not going to be considered bound. Okay, so you can get creative. You can 3-hole punch and put rings in it. You can put ribbons in it. Really get creative, but a staple in the corner is not going to earn you any points on that part of the requirements. Okay, it also has to include the following items in the specific order that is listed. Okay, you're going to be graded on neatness, creativity, mechanics, and your actual content of your poems. One of the main points is that this is not a digital project. You are going to physically turn this in. Okay, now the first thing you're going to have is a table of contents. A table of contents is going to list out each of the different poems that you use with their page numbers. Each poem must have an original title, so it cannot say poem number 1, poem number 2. You need to look at what you've written and come up with something creative as a title. Okay. You will need to put the type of poem in parentheses out next to it, and that is very important. So I'm going to bold that and underline it. So for example, if you have written a poem and you have titled it The Amazing Life, out next to it in parentheses, I need you to tell me that this is an ABC poem. Or if you have written a poem called Slowly, I need you out next to it to tell me that this is an adverb poem. And because you're writing so many, if you do not tell me what type of poem you're trying to attempt to write out next to it, I'm going to have to guess. And most of the time, my guess is not going to match what you're trying to do. So please make sure you follow that part of the directions really carefully. Okay. Now, as far as your pages go, you can have more than one poem on a page. Just make sure to number that on your table of contents. All right, so there's two parts. The first part of the project is going to be your original poetry, and you are going to write 10, yes, 10, I'm going to highlight that, 10 original poems using the style options that are listed below. Okay. Some of them you've probably heard before, like a free verse, or maybe you've heard of a limerick, or maybe you've heard of a name poem. Others may be more unfamiliar to you, like a bio poem or a win-away poem, and that's okay. There's going to be examples later on in the directions for you to go off of. Here's the catch. Out of the 10 that you write, 4 of them that have the little asterisk star next to them have to be included. So 4, like the alliteration poem right here, the free verse poem right here, the bio poem right here, and the imagery poem, you have to do those. You do not have a choice. So essentially, you're going to get 6 true options other than those 4 that you can pick from. Okay. In your poetry book, arrange them in order according to the list below. So really organization is important with this. Okay. Now, as far as illustrations go, each page that you have in your poetry book needs to have some form of illustration. It can be in color, it can be photography, it can be graphic design, it can be your own original drawings. But basically, you do not want to have pages that just have words on them. Really make it your own. You do not have to be an artist to accomplish this. Just make sure that you put some effort in to include some type of illustration to go along with your words. All right, part 2, you are going to find someone else's published poem and either print it out or rewrite it. It's up to you. Make sure you cite the source of your poem using MLA format. Citing it would not be putting www.poetry.com. That is not a citation. That is a link. So make sure it's an actual MLA citation. After you get that printed out or you've rewritten it, you're going to use our TPCast model like we've practiced in class, and you are going to go through an analysis of that poem, and it will be all marked up just like we did in class, and that's how you'll turn it in. So you'll go through and show me that you understood how to predict the title, how to paraphrase it, how to look for the connotations in the figurative language, all of those things. And that will be at the very end of the book. With that, if you pick the shortest poem that's ever been written on the earth, you will not be able to do a full analysis of it using TPCast. So do not try to take the easy way out and find a poem that has 3 lines in it and then at the end say, well, my poem was short, so I couldn't really do it. That's not going to work. You need to find a poem that has some sort of substantial length like you practiced in class so that you can actually go through and show me the steps of the analysis. Now, when is this due? This is due on Tuesday, October 16th. I know you're wondering, do you get any class time at all to work on this? If you look at your lesson plans, it tells you that after you're done watching this video today, yes, you actually get to start looking through the poems, looking through the examples, planning out what you're going to write. So you have the rest of today to start working on that. If you look at next week, we don't have school on Monday. We do not have any designated time the rest of that week. The following week, you will have one day, the day before it's due to write in class. Okay, so it is due Tuesday the 16th at the beginning of class. It will be a test grade on the 6 weeks. You will not get any class time on the day of the 16th. You will walk in and hand it over to me. So it's very important that over the 2 weeks that you have to do this, that you manage your time wisely, because you will only get today and then one additional day to work on it in class. All right. Now, if you look down the rest of the page, I've given you examples of the different poems and the requirements that go with each of them. So, for example, the first poem option is called an ABC poem, and it says beginning anywhere in the alphabet, write a poem where each line begins with the next letter of the alphabet. Your poem must be at least 10 lines long, and then it will give you an example. So a lot of them will say you need to have at least 10 lines or at least 5 lines or whatever. Some of the shorter poems, like an adverb poem, or let's see, I think a limerick, the 5 W's poem, a haiku, out next to it, it will say a minimum. So some say 2 minimum, some say 3 minimum. So let's say that I pick a haiku. I can't just write one 3-line haiku and be done. I have to write 3 3-line haikus. That's what 3 minimum means. Or for a 5 W's poem. 5 W's poem has 5 lines. I can't just write one of those to get credit. I have to write 2 of them because they're really short. Okay, so the shorter poems that you choose, you'll have to do at least 2 or 3 of them to get credit. So you can go through and look at all of the different options. Now, how will I be graded? At the very, very end, there is a rubric. So it will tell you that for each original poem that you write, each of them will be 5 points apiece, and you can see how that breaks down. You can see that you get points for your notebook, which is how you put it all together. Or let me change the wording on that. Let's say poetry book. Okay, so do you have a cover on it? Does it have binding? Do you have a table of contents? Is it in alphabetical order by poem type? Page numbers? Is it done neatly? There's 12 points for your illustrations, and then you also have points for the TPCAST poem analysis. Do you have an MLA citation? All of those things, okay? Please remember that if you are using someone else's pictures, someone else's words, you have to cite them. You don't need to create a works cited page. You can just do that at the bottom of the poem on whatever page it is in the book. Okay, so this paper is your go-to for anything that you need to know, any example that you need to know about this poetry project. And one more time, it is due on the 16th. Put a reminder in your phone that you need to be actively working on that over the next few weeks. Okay, so you have the rest of today to go ahead, get some paper out, open up a new document, however you feel like planning the best. Go through and look at the examples, and you can plan out what poems you're going to do. Maybe you can start searching for the poem analysis you want to do. But either way, remember, this is a major grade.